Hello everyone, Richard Carlton here. Welcome. I have to press my little button here and unwind my microphone. Welcome to Friday. It's an awesome day because we're going to be learning about FileMaker and making great applications that make your customers happy. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTraining.tv, where we spend all our time working on training you to be a great FileMaker developer, whether you're a beginning developer, a intermediate developer, or an advanced ninja knife throwing kung fu kind of developer. We're here to help you. We're going to be dealing with all those people today. We're going to be addressing an interesting blog that Claris has. It's going to result in me kind of reorganizing a couple videos, and I wanted to kind of test run some of this by you today, see what you think about it, but it's really kind of a very interesting conversation. We are broadcasting 3 high definition streams to YouTube, to Discord, and to Twitch. We are watching the conversations in all 3. And once again, feel free to ask questions as we go. People want to know what the difference is between live streaming and our video courses that you can purchase. The video courses, of course, are at fmtraining.tv right here. So if you go to FM Training TV, you can see our live training over here. This is what we're doing right now. There also are pre-recorded courses. These are animated. I think that they are probably better scripted. There's less ad hoc kind of conversation going on. One of my engineers said stream of consciousness one time. That's typical for a Friday. I don't think it'll happen today because I have a very specific agenda. But so people ask questions here. Sometimes people don't like to ask questions here. If you really hate to see questions in a live stream, then you need to watch the videos here that are part of the training bundle. Okay, let's talk about this. Claris engineering department, who has a bunch of people in it that I have probably never met before. I used to know the people pretty well, but they've kind of changed and moved, and then you lose track of the people there. So the engineers down there decided that they would cover a topic that's never been covered before, which is how to make your application faster. And I thought it was really awesome. We talked about this previously. I am going to restructure our training a little bit. This is a big part of the book, but it's also, I'm going to restructure the 1000 section of our video training. So what I wanted to do is kind of largely follow along. If I go to our video training videos, so all of you should have the training videos. If you don't, I have no idea what you definitely have. This is how you support the live stream, is by buying at least something, right? If you don't want to buy anything, then I don't know, send me a give me a postcard. Shoot me a video. Tell me how wonderful the training is. Except if you don't have it, then how would you know? Never mind. Don't send me anything. So this is the FileMaker 20, what we call the 2020 course. Once again, we're trying to go to years because inevitably Claris will probably start doing that as well. Section 1000 is performance optimization. So down here, so I go into my video player. I select the course right here. I come down to section 1000. I do performance. What I'm going to do is looking at there's nothing wrong with these videos here, but what I want to do is, hang on, 1000. Nope, 1000. What I want to do is kind of restructure them a little bit, especially these 3 right here. And then the rest of these maybe not so much. And because it really comes into an interesting conversation for those of you here, because you know that Nick Hunter has done performance, and where does Nick Hunter fit? So really, when I train people, I'm training you how to get from brand new developer to intermediate to probably up over in here somewhere, right? Really, my training will take you up to right here. When you're in this level right here, you're up to about this level, right on the edge of a senior engineer. You think that you might be able to take the certification test, but you've not done it. You're not really sure, but you've been doing FileMaker 4 or 5 years, 6 years or something like that. I mean, seriously doing it. I'm not talking about flying a hot air balloon all day and playing in the evening with FileMaker. I'm not making fun of Ken. I'm just saying we have, like, Bunny came to me and said, hey, how long did it take me to be an expert FileMaker person? And I go, well, what are you doing? And she goes, well, I watch you an hour a day. And that's not enough, right? You have to actually do this during the day for years, right? And preferably with other people, because that's how you get better at it. If you only do it in your spare time, then you're going to get to a point where you'll kind of plateau, right? Because people tend to forget things. It's like as a pilot, Ken will tell you this. As a pilot, if you're not flying every day or every other day, it's hard for you to maintain that knowledge. Your knowledge starts to drift down, right? Down. So anyway, yeah, Dave Learning is there. Awesome, Dave. Welcome. Ken is there. Yeah. So And so that's why when you fly a lot as a pilot, or you're anything professional, or you're a doctor and you're seeing patients, and you're a surgeon, and you're doing surgeries, then you don't do surgeries for a year, and then you come back to it. It could be a little rocky for the first couple people that you work on, right? I wouldn't want to be those people, right? So, yeah, so that's kind of how that works. So the idea with my training is that we go to here to here. And then Nick, the lean design, is really from about this point forward. Now, it's applicable, useful for you to learn this stuff. But really, what you're going to see in this is that you're going to see a mishmash of recommendations. So what I tell you to do is you want to get the, if you want to find this blog, I'm going to tell you that you want to type Claris Engineering Blog. And you really don't have to do this because I'm going to take care of it for you in a video, and you'll probably see it in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. All the material you have here already. But you'll find this Claris Engineering Blog comes up, and they've done 2 articles. I'm going to review the WebDirect one with Nick. I don't want to recommend it until I've reviewed it. This one here is interesting because it's basically a mishmash of stuff. Up front is like this summary of things that goes on, right? But let's just kind of cover it from the, well, actually, let's just go through it. So this is like the summary, and then here's where it starts. So schema. So let's talk about that. So schema. So some of these items are very basic level items, and some of them may be lean design items. Claris doesn't differentiate in the level of expertise needed. They just throw this out there, right? So limit the use of unstored calculations because they need to be calculated all the time, okay? And then consequently, blah, 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 whatever. Also, this goes for summary fields. Summary fields and calculations. So this gets back to something that Mark Richmond in a webinar, and I was about to give you the guys a webinar, but then it's sufficiently old and a little bit decrepit. It's 7 years old, 8 years old, that I really want to. One of you said this. It was Ken or someone that had this like epiphany, right? And what it was, I'm going to zoom back out just briefly here. Was that, or it was Bunny? So when you let me see, because I'm also writing about this, so I have to articulate this really well. If I can't articulate it really well, then we're all toast. So, brand new developer. When you're a brand new developer, all you're trying to do is get it to work at all. Like you're building a solution, you're trying to get it to work at all. And when it works at all, you are happy. You don't care that it was the fastest way of executing, because when you tell it to go, it goes pretty much quickly because you're running the file locally. When you're a brand new developer, you probably don't run server, you don't run the cloud. It's running locally on your Mac or Windows computer. And you're just happy that you made it to work. Even though there's 10 ways of doing it, some of which are better ways or worse ways, you just got it to work. I think that's great. I think the fact that you got success with it is great. I think you made progress is great. If I could pat you on the back, I'd pat you guys on the back. I would. You guys and gals, Amy and Carol and everyone else. The trick is then somewhere along the way you go, wow, I could make this. And you show it to someone. And then that person goes, hey, I could use this and share it with the team. And then you put it up on the server. So right in here somewhere, it goes on a server because you showed it to someone. And they said, hey, there is value for what you did. You built a useful thing for the organization. You are awesome. Once again, another pat on the back, okay? So then you get into this area here where you start to use it. And somewhere that you build a solution that you have 20 or 30 people using it on the cloud, or maybe fewer people using it, but you're on like a mobile device with 3G network, and you're out in the desert in Albuquerque. Although I think Ken is in town. You get to this point where the performance starts to go down because you start seeing these progress bars, and as you press buttons, there's kind of this lag, this stutter. It's almost like, right? You could tell when and the problem is that people have an expectation of performance. Where does the expectation come from? It comes from Amazon and eBay and Facebook and places like that. So whatever the speed that Amazon operates at, or eBay, or the most common websites in the world, whatever speed they operate at is the speed that everyone expects you to do too. Because obviously if Amazon can do it, Ken from Albuquerque should be able to do it too, along with Amy and Jay Dripper and TK and everyone else. Right? Now, is that fair? No. But is it reality? Yeah, it just is the way it is. I can't argue with that, right? So you get to this part where we're going to start teaching about performance, right? And so that's kind of this idea in here where we're going to start teaching you basic level things, and then some of this stuff is more so part of my presentation here, and I'm kind of working this out as we go, is to make sure identify whether this is basic material or more advanced. So I would say don't use unstored calculations unnecessarily, and don't use summaries unnecessarily, and write a script. So back to the Mark Richmond point, I got distracted, is that he summarized it, and we summarized it a couple weeks ago. The key piece is to make, where's my piece of paper? Here's my piece of paper, okay? This is your FileMaker server. I need to be whiter here. This would be animated. I don't have any animations right now, okay? This is your FileMaker Pro. This is your FileMaker server. And in between there, the data is going to go back and forth. And if a lot of data has to go back and forth, it's going to kind of choke and churn because you're waiting for the data to go back and forth. Once again, you have the little packets of data. We talked about little packets of data. What is the speed that the data goes back and forth? We have a speed. We measure it, right? It's either we measure it in terms of milliseconds of delay, called latency. And the rule of thumb is if it's below 150, you're going to be unhappy. That's from Claris, okay? We did some tests thanks to another one of the gentlemen here, NJ, who was working on another sample file for us. And he measured it from Australia. He was consistently getting 200 milliseconds from Australia to the United States, which means that if an Australian is accessing a FileMaker server in the United States, generally, it's below the minimum recommendations of Claris. I would tell you that I would say anything below about 100, people start to get grumpy. Below 200, they really get agitated. Okay, anything better than 100, you should be able to get through that. Anything above, if it's less than 2 or 3 milliseconds, the server's in your office with you. So around town, a server that's local, 10, 20, 30 milliseconds, something like that. So that's these little packets of information that go back and forth. So what is performance optimization about? It's about having only the packets go that you want to go, only when you tell them to go. You go when you tell them to run. The problem is that FileMaker is kind of automatic. When you're building these solutions and you're a beginner and you just have it work, you don't care what happened on the backside. The numbers came out, you added up a bunch of invoices, then the invoices totaled up correctly. It calculated the tax correctly. You're happy. You should be happy. But as we get farther along, we want to control precisely when this little bit of data is going to whiz back and forth across the internet. We want it to send the data when we tell it to, not when Claris or FileMaker thinks it should. We want to control it. We do. Why? Because then we can decide how much if we control the floodgates of how much we send back and forth, then we control our own destiny. We want to control our destiny. We want to control, which means we control the performance, which means we control the speed, which means we control the customer's happiness. So if you can control the bit back and forth, you can control the customer's happiness. How's that for an equation, right? So that's the critical understanding. I want to control when the data goes back and forth, or when a calculation fires, right? A calculation is where it's doing math or logically working something out. When does a calculation fire and when does the data go back and forth? If you control those, then you're going to be successful. It's very important. So if we go over to FM starting point, for example, I'm just going to point this out. Once again, if we come over here to starting point, I'm going to open up a file. I'm going to go to the first record. This doesn't have much sample data in it. I have one invoice. We have one with more than one invoice in it. No, this is that database. Where's the fat one out? Let me see if I can get the fat one out. All right, so this is the one. It's about 6 or 7 gigs of data, whatever it is. It's a little on the large side. That data is all real data represented there. I go to contacts. This is all real data. This server is 75 miles from here. Latency is going to be about 45 milliseconds. Okay, so if I'm flipping through records here, I can see that this one has 7 invoices. Okay, now these little numbers right here are calculations that are firing when I come to this screen. If you have a ton of people and a lot of data, these little counts right here, we have to control these. Right now, the only thing that's automatic right now are these numbers right here. So when I come down here, all these numbers there's no math that's going on. It doesn't have to total up. Like if I click on this and I want to see the invoice, that number, when I ask for the total, it's not going, oh, quick, like everyone builds an invoice this way. Oh, quick, add up all the line items and then put it in this summary field or something, right? Or calculation field. And then stick it on the, no. When we do that, like if I change this number right here, watch this. You folks will love this, right? I'm going to change this well, it doesn't matter. I can change it to 9, okay? Now watch, it'll change there. Watch down there, click, okay? It changed the amount due, which we don't particularly care about, but it didn't change the total, right? And so what happens is that, and what it did is as we clicked there, it actually it tripped a script trigger that updated that number. But and it's actually what happens. So the script actually runs. So if I go up here and I hit script debugger, and so if I click out, nothing happens. If I click and I clicked into it, now it's checking some things to make sure, it's making sure that the invoice is not locked. I'm just going to tell it to play through. I'm going to change this to 201. If I click out, here comes a trigger. Now it's going to run financial calcs only when I'm in here editing the data. It doesn't do them any other time. Now, I, Richard Carlton, am the investor and the developer of this, so it's doing it because I tell it to do it. I could decide, I don't want to do it right now. I want to do it at midnight because I don't want to do it during the day. But I figure if you're actually changing the invoice right now, that you actually want to see it. So it's a very important concept that you're going to control when the calculations fire. I keep moving myself around, so I guess I could make myself somewhat smaller. So it runs when I exit here, and then it will, if I go over here to the script debugger, did I close it? Script debugger's there. Oh, I closed it. It finished running, and it updates. And so when we go back over to contacts over here, and we're on these invoices here, these numbers have already been added up. It's not doing any math. All it is these are not calculation fields. These are number fields that a script had already set. Okay, super important. So I come down here at the bottom, and it's like, hey, where's the total? Well, we don't have it run the total every time. If every time I flipped a record, I had to run the math and run the total and do all this stuff, once again, I want to control when my bit is going to go. So the reason we put an update down there, the little button down there, is because I want to control precisely when it runs. I say, now I could script it, a robot to do this for me every hour or at midnight, but I decided that part of this is training education, so I want to see that you have control. So you have control. We press the update button. Then it does the math and gets that. Well, that was pretty quick. It should have just done that automatically. You can do that. You will find, though, if you have it, if you give the computer choices and decisions it can make, those choices have a cumulative effect. It's like giving it like a little bit of a brain. It's going to do it at once. And if it decides it's going to do a bunch of this and move data, your performance goes down. So the less you do of these updates, the faster it runs. That's why I can put 1 million records in here. I give this solution away. It's the definitive CRM for the FileMaker platform, period. And it's optimized for enterprise class performance. You can't make a FileMaker, well, if I took Nick and gave Nick $100,000 and told him to run wild with it, he could probably irk out another 20% performance out of it. But is it worth that? Because it already, as it is, supports hundreds of people on one server easily. We've actually 300 or 400 people. And then if you have multiple servers like what we're doing next week, it supports thousands of people, right? So anyway, it's pretty damn fast. And for the amount of money that people pay for it, it's pretty fast. And that's because we went to all this effort to do that. So that is starting point. That's why when I show you, like if I run this update on this chart right now, I think we did this the other day, it accidentally activated. This update is a really ugly update. It runs on the server. I think it was taking like way too long. You'd have to like revisit the code in here. But the good news is that the server's doing it for you. You're not doing it. But it was reprocessing like 20 million records or whatever it was doing, and it'd take 4 or 5 hours to do it. So you'd want to figure out a way of optimizing this code in here, making it go faster. Do we really want to see, maybe we don't total up the records every month. We only update the column for the current month because maybe the previous months never change, right? It'd be a way of just analyze the part that's changing, right? Instead of doing the whole thing. Okay, so going back to the Claris blog over here. So if we go back to the blog and what they're saying on the blog, so I consider this idea of controlling the bits back and forth, unstored calculations, summary fields, that is pretty straightforward stuff. Then they say you can use auto enter calculations instead. Kind of yes, but this is almost a more advanced topic. Most of the time, because you remember Nick covered this in lean design, I almost consider that, at a very basic level, a beginner can do it. But I think that to really take advantage of the lean design and to really make this stuff run crazy good, you have to be up here towards the senior end of the talent pool, right? You saw some of that. It was pretty deep. I don't know too many beginners or intermediates that could really do Nick's thing. Obviously, please limit the use of SQL. People say, we should use SQL. It's faster. Not in FileMaker. It's not faster. Here's proof of that, right? So SQL in large data sets, not good, right? So you want to limit that. Use the if and case functions efficiently. This gets back more into the conversation about the let function, right? Because they actually get into that right down here where they say, remember with the let function, you define the items that you want and it calculates them once and then you do the basic math. But if you use an if or a case function or something else, every time you reference like a get function or some sort of summary function, it has to rerun it every time. It doesn't know the fact that you put like if you put like this field right here. So check this out. So you got this right here. Every time it sees that, it's going to have to process it. So it's right there, and then it's looks like it's right here again. So it does it twice, and now it's going to do it 3 times. So it did this this summary field, this summary. It's a summary calc or summary function. It just did it 4 times. That's 3 times too many. It needs to do it just once. If you use a let function, that's where that comes in. That's why Nick has the video on let function. So if you want to know where that's at, we go back to our FileMaker training tool. We go up here. We say, hey, let's do a search for let, L-E-T, hit the return key. We want all courses. There we go. Let's talk. Oh, that's about FileMaker Go. Communication, focus to a communication, add-on modules, defining let functions, LiveStream. Let function with Nick Hunter right there. So I know it's kind of a long list because let, I mean, you could always have let in a sentence too. So, but that was the recent video he did. He really tore this up, did a great job on it. So we do have a question. Jake says, it is best to use on-object validate or save to make these updates. Like if I wanted to update line item total when the quantity is changed. Well, I mean, okay, that's why I give starting a point away for free and it's unlocked, Jake. So you can look at what we did. You'd have to you have to look at the script triggers, and generally I would say, yeah, probably you. Oh wait a minute, where's the other? Well, I got to be careful with this. Where'd that go? Do I have it? Oh, there's the fat one right there. Okay, let me bring up the fat one. Let's go to invoices. Let's see what trigger we use. So we were in here. We changed. So we're on the invoicing, right? So we're in starting point. Layouts 800C. I have the basic mode on, so it's not very complicated. I put this in right here. I go to layout mode. I'm going to click on the unit cost. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say button setup. Is that what I want? Or do I want triggers? I think I'm going to want the triggers. It's one of those deals where the user interface from FileMaker is a little... Okay. Do nothing. Okay, there's no button set up there. Yeah, so I need to specify the trigger. So you have to go up under here. See, so wouldn't that make sense? Like you right-click it, and it would say, oh, show me the trigger, right? I don't know. Before you asked, I don't know. There we go. Can I right-click it then? There, yeah, there it is. So that's a group right there. It's a grouped item. It's with it and something else is there. You need to take it apart and play with it. But if I go there, I right-click now, I can see the script trigger. The trigger is on object enter. Okay, on object enter we do initially to make sure it's not, the invoice isn't locked. We don't want to edit it. And then we do on object save. So Jake Shell. I was calling you Jake Steele. That's like a more macho, cool name. Jake Steele. All right, Jake Shell. Yeah, gold star for that. On object save is what we used. But like this, let's pick something like, I don't know. I just put like a box on here. Let me put a button on here. Here's a button. Okay, here's a button. Give me a button. There's a button. Okay, and hello world. Right? Actually, a button's not a good idea. I don't want a button. I need a yeah, script trigger. Well, it'd be a field, right? So I go over here like this field. This field looks pretty basic. If I look on the left, it's called red dog. Okay, so that must be in all the copies of starting point. And we also have purple beaver in here. Okay, so if you see an object named red dog and purple beaver, those were names changes for videos we did last year. They're not supposed to be in the master shipping version, which is what's in here. So apparently we have red dogs and purple beavers. So if I select on, now that's the object name. If I go to field, you will see the actual name, right? right? I'll see the name, account name, but if I'm on that and I go over here to, it's another group. I swear, I'm getting tired of the group thing. It's hard database sometimes to demo, right? Because it's just so damn, there's a lot of moving pieces in here. If I say, well, it's not going to let me ungroup that. So let me get rid of that. Let me just blow some stuff up here. There we go. How about that? How about that? We have that a group or not a group? Objects. No, it's just red dog. But if I go over to fields, it's called account name. So if I'm here, I'm on it over here. See red dog right there in the top right. That's where you set your object name. So you're going to click on the object, come over here, and then change it. It should say account name or something like that. Or just no. Actually, by default, they don't have a name, right? When you have an object on screen, red dog copy 8. Oh, that's great. Red dog copy 3. Yeah, so these objects don't have names. So yeah, I might have to go through and change all the red dogs we have because that's funny. All right, so that's what happens when you use somehow the master file became the sample file and then went back to being the master file. So yeah, a lot of fun. Okay, so the idea is we're way off the topic here, but we have this object right here. Right click on it, script triggers, and then you can select the object. And Jake got it right. It's on object save. So when we're over here doing an on object save, then we trigger a script that runs the updates. And so it only runs when we edit the invoice. All the rest of the time when we're over here in the list view, right? We're over here, and normally you try this without that. You go to list view, and it'd be sitting there going on all these line items going, trying to calculate. You'd see it kind of choking, right? So if I go show me all records, right, and I'm going down here, notice it's pretty damn quick. And this is across the wide area network with 1 million records. Pretty quick. Why? Because it's not doing any math. Right now, there's no math happening. Well, what about at the bottom of the total? There are no totals, right? They're off, right? If you want a total, I'm a little nervous about pressing that with this many records in here. How about I just put a K in here for a count? I narrow it down a little bit. Let's do that. All right, so now we have 58,9,000. I'm going to hit update. So now it's going to go. This section is efficient. If in case would be future topic. Well, okay, so the way you can go through that, I mean, I don't listen. The problem with this topic is Claris does this little checklist here, right? And they're like, it's like 2 pages, right? And then it's like, ta-da, we're done. And it's like, but to learn this crap is like, I don't know, 30 or 40 hours of training, right? So we're only barely down here. So case statements are more efficient, right? Because what happens, it evaluates it, and then as soon as it finds the first one, it exits. Case is much better. If you start nesting a bunch of if statements, it has to work the whole thing out. Makes sense? A case statement is much more efficient. And what you do is that you run the most common condition first. That's a good tip right there. So summarize, unstored, calculate. We already covered that. I like this one. I like this one. So for those of you, I'm frequently told that I'm a moron and I don't know what I'm doing, or people just ignore me, which is fine. And so back in 2005 or something, the powers that be, the people that are out there, David Frank is the one, but he got it from someone else who was running around talking about anchor buoy. Okay, and so what happened was then about 3 or 4 or 5 years later, Claris came out and actually endorsed anchor buoy, right? And let me give you a clue. This ain't anchor buoy. Okay, this is called a pile of dog doo-doo. Okay, and the performance will be correspondingly horrible. Okay. It's called a spider diagram. It's very spidery. I don't know if they use the word spider or not. See, the problem is they don't use any of those terms, right? So this is what we call spider diagram. So Claris came out and they basically were endorsing. They basically came out and said, oh, yeah, you really should use this other technique called anchor buoy, right? And so then so they had that recommendation in about 2007 or 8 in the books and manuals and stuff. Then they got rid of all the recommendations, right? And then so it's been all crickets from them and from the engineering department. Not that I wouldn't talk to them about it. It's just that they don't care and they figure that it's our job to train. Well, obviously, Claris Engineering is unaware that we do training because they put this out. And it's like, oh yeah, now we're back to anchor buoy, except they don't call it that. So they kind of recommend it, then they quit recommending it, and then someone got a job, that assignment down there to write a blog, and they came up with this, except they don't call it anchor buoy. They say, hey, just kind of break it down, right? Kind of break it down and separate it, right? And so this is Claris saying this, right? And of course, then the other day I got Christian running around saying, hey, just connect them all together, right? And so I was like, I wanted to wring Christian's neck, but it was actually a really good point, because their new add-on modules, when you drag them on the screen, if you drag an add-on module, it connects to one, and if you add it again to another screen, it might start cross-connecting these, and it won't. Listen, what makes this suck and run slow is not the fact that it's ugly. Okay, it's ugly. It looks like my, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I was watching The Sandlot last night, classic movie. Some kid goes, "Yeah, if I was ugly as you are, I'd have to. If my dog was ugly as you, I'd tell it to shave its butt and have it walk backwards." I was on the floor laughing. I'd never heard that, but that is like your dog's butt backwards. That's really horrible. But that's not why it's slow. It's slow because every box is cross-connected to every other box. This is pretty. It's not fast because it's pretty. It's pretty because this half of the boxes don't connect to this half of the boxes, right? Makes sense? And in starting point, it's even much more broke down than that, right? And so anything that takes you away from happiness, from this organized, and if you look over here, let me zoom, I can come in here. So you see that group there, right? And that's pretty well organized. I got these kind of ones hanging out here. That's the productive computing's. We put hooks in there for QuickBooks from productive computing, except they don't talk to me anymore. I don't think they love me anymore. So I'm not sure what to do with them. Anyway, so there's a group there. When we actually come up with a name of naming and all that kind of stuff. And see, these are table occurrence groups. These are called a TOG. That's an occurrence. And a table. There are table occurrences. We only connect the layouts to the anchors here. These are the buoys, and they're separated. That's a little gap right there because we got rid of one for whatever reason. So ideally, at some point in the future, we will come down here and move them down, and or we might renumber them to fill the gap in, because now there's no E. Oh, that was ugly. Now there's no E, right? So you could just come down here and make it pretty. But the whole idea is that when you come to this layout, all it has to do is worry about this. It doesn't have to worry about everything. And so Claris, being the infinitely wise people that they are, in this case for sure, they came out and basically endorsed kind of what we've already been saying, which is pretty cool. And it's not like I say it, because Hansa from 24U, who is the most, I don't want to say, I don't know. I will say he has a marginal obsessive compulsive disorder with speed issues. He's a stopwatch freak, right? And every time he makes a tool, of course he sells a tool that does this, which is maybe why he likes it so much, but he could put a timer script on any process and tell you in milliseconds where your code is fast and where it's slow. It's kind of interesting. It might be worthwhile to have him over here sometime to talk about that. That being said, he actually did stopwatches on this, and I presented all of this information already. Christian just happened to ignore it, but he stopwatched the hell out of it. And as soon as you start cross-connecting stuff, FileMaker has to take a lot more into account, right? A lot more in its head, instead of just being focused on the one group. So that's that. I really dislike this. I remember I read this earlier today, and I sat and stewed on it for a while, okay? This is a test question. This should just say, don't sort large numbers of records. The network, right? When you sort, where'd my prop go? You're trying to sort data. When you tell the computer to sort between you and the server, the data, it's like turning on the spigot. It's not like one little block of data going back and forth. When you sort with FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Go, all the data relevant to the sort is pushed down through the network. Actually, I think it pushes all the records down, which is like millions of records, or in this case. And so instead of you saying sort, hey, just sort me 1,000,000 records, it's going to like, and so instead of moving one little bit of data back and forth, you've turned on the spigot, and it's going to take so long you can go take a shower, get a coffee, come back, and it might be done. And so that's what it should say. Don't sort large numbers of records, but they didn't say it that way, right? They said it large records in a portal or through a secondary table occurrence. So the back to the question about the portal sort here. Claris, back with FileMaker release of 17, I think, they did this thing where I can't really simulate it here very easily. I can simulate it with my own system, but I don't want to. It's got financial data. I really don't want to spew it all over the place. But what they would end up, they had a where, here's the fat one here, is that if you're over, say you're here, and then we go, what if I go to the quick access? Okay. I'm in the fat though. If I can run an update. What they want you to do is put it in a portal. And the reason is FileMaker fundamentally is a single-threaded process. This is kind of one of those important things. If I'm over here running FileMaker doing stuff, okay, and I can't tell how much I'm actually doing right now on this computer, but let me show you my. And this doesn't matter, Mac or Windows. And this is not historically just a FileMaker thing, although they're like a notorious offender of this thing. But it's not an easy fix. If I go to the activity monitor, if I show CPU usage, okay, these are all the processor cores I have on my computer. Okay, really distributed right now because I'm doing broadcasts and video and things like that. If you are not doing a bunch of broadcast video or doing Photoshop stuff, say Photoshop will use all the processors evenly. FileMaker will use one processor historically, and then all the other ones will be like on just sitting on their rear ends doing nothing. And so so it doesn't matter that you have 12 processors or one processor; it runs the same speed. Okay. So people say, I've got a Mac and it's going to be 24 cores and I'm going to run FileMaker Pro than everyone else. And the dude with 4 cores with the same speed of the CPU, the same, it's like a 2.4 gigahertz or 3 gigahertz, whatever. His computer goes the same speed in FileMaker. Why? Because FileMaker really only uses one processor. And so what Claris did is they jury-rigged up the, if you have a sort in a portal, it will take that sort of the portal and move it out to a different processor, and that processor will handle it separately. It's one of those rare cases where FileMaker Pro will use a second processor. If you're on FileMaker Server, basically every time someone comes into the server, like I have these 12 cores here, say this was the server, like if Jake comes in and says, hey, I need something, one processor will work on his request. And then Amy will get her process and it'll start working on her request. So you'll have 2 of the processors of the 12 going. The 12 are not going to help Jake. The 12 are not going to help Amy, but they each get their own separate one. And then if TK comes in and King comes in and Scott comes in and Carol comes in and Dave Learning comes in and Christian comes in, everyone's getting their own processor. At least you're not all waiting for the first processor to finish. So it's pretty good about that. It's pretty useful like that. So having a lot of processors on the server can be useful because then everyone gets their own and it's thrashing about and doing whatever it does to generate the data you need. And so Claris, once again, the problem is we only use 2 cores or 1 core. When you're doing the sort, you're basically waiting for it. So when they write this recommendation right here, and I hate to be in the weeds on this, because some of you are kind of like intermediate level people or not, but it's really this conversation right here should be simplified. But this is like a senior engineer, like only do it. This basically what this says is only do a large sort if you can divert it to the second processor. But then A, you have to know this feature exists, and B, you have to know what the criteria are for that. And that is not documented. There is no documentation that I'm aware of where Claris documents how FileMaker Pro will use a second processor. They don't. So I know about it because I shot 500 videos a year, and this was in a video I did 2 years ago. And I was like, so here's the rule, don't do sort. So if you have to do a sort, what do? TK, someone, what's the sort? If we have to do a sort, you see it's still spinning. It's probably going to run for an hour. I'm going to go back to, can I close this? Well, let me close it. Okay. Okay, so the server now has got one processor just doing that one request, right? So I'm over here. What if I want to, I'm on the wrong database. I'm going to close that. I mean, where's the fat one at? Fat. Oh, I closed the fat one entirely out. Okay, not what I wanted. Close recent. So what's the answer, guys? Nope. You don't want to sort the relationship either, Scott. I mean, sort the relationship and use that table across the portal. Okay, all you're doing is buying yourself a second processor, but you're still sending the data through the network, right? Right, so I'm trying to be clear about this. This is why this sucks. It's one of those conversations, you know that it's going to be hard to understand. So you got your server over here, you got your client over here, and if you sort 1 million records, as a general rule, the client has to do the sort. The server does not do the sort for you and send the data back. You as a client have to do the sort. Like when you do a find, most of the time when you do an indexed find, not an unindexed find, an indexed find, the FileMaker server will do the find and just send you back the records you found. So it's smart. You give it to the server does it, gives you back. That's the way life should be. When you do a sort, it doesn't work that way. The server goes, oh, you want to sort? Way too lazy. We've had huge conversation with Claris about giving us the ability to offload the sorting to the server. They're afraid of it. There's some engineering reason for it, because if you had 100 people try to sort at one time, it could cause a problem. So they say, oh, you want to sort? Instead of sorting, I'm just going to grab this big basket of 1 million records of data and shove it down the network to your client. And so you're sitting there waiting for this stuff to download. Once you get all the data, then you sort it, right? That's the problem, right? And so you don't want to have 1 million records coming through the network. So if you want to sort, you minimize the number of records first. It produce a found set of a smaller group of records. Say you sort 1,000 or 50 or 100, right? That's the answer to the question. Super, super, super important. Yes, thank you, TK. Reduce the number of records, then do the sort. Yep. That's this issue here, which basically is a really, someone would have had a double case of clevers, but they don't explain or, yeah. So when I have to explain to you why it says what it says, that's a fail. Okay. Layouts, limit the number of portals visible on a layout. Okay. Yeah, every time you put a relational connection on that anchor buoy, especially if you delete data or you're displaying data out of it, that's a problem too. That's why you don't connect everything into a spider diagram. So filter for, I don't want to use the word filter, Ken, because that implies that there is a filter thing. There's a filter function and a filter capability in the portal. Just generate a find, lower the found set, then execute the sort on top of that. I'm careful with the word filter. It's like it could be misunderstood. Custom themes and shared styles. Okay, we have videos on this. Custom themes and shared style. Just do a search for custom themes, shared style. That right there is a solid hour of training just with this one little thing right here. Custom themes and shared styles, right? So that's why this is kind of a big topic. It's not like how to learn how to make FileMaker go fast in an hour, right? Just not possible. I just wanted to kind of go through this dialogue with you. The classic theme is super overweight, so when you do custom themes and shared styles, you would rebuild it. We specifically address this in the training. If you start with a fresh copy starting point, you don't have to worry about most of all these issues. We've taken care of them for you. Scripts, perform large data operations on the host, okay? And there it is, perform script on server. So we want to use PSOS as often as possible. The problem is having the server do the sort and sending the data back. I'm not sure if that always is such a great thing or not, because you're still sending the data back and forth. If you could have the server do the sort, then only lop off the top 100 records and send those to you, potentially. But you have to send that data, the IDs through the script parameter, right? We talked about that with Nick, right? So great. Additional resources and performance under the hood, and there's some videos in here. But basically, this is kind of the conversation here, which is part of my problem with this, and it's not that they did a horrible job. It says that it vacillates in the world of, I've lost control of the computer. Oh, there it is. I was pressing this. It vacillates. Their recommendations vacillate here from this person to this person. And then they make a reference here that only the most senior person had been around knew about the multi-threaded capabilities of FileMaker, I think 17 or something. 16 or 17 they added that. So here's what you'll know whenever you see it. If you ever have a portal and suddenly you get this weird stopwatch, looks like a clock hand going around. It's like a totally different dialogue. You've never seen it before. It's something that FileMaker coded. In the middle of the portal, you'll see the stopwatch go around. a second processor is running to handle something in that portal for you, is what's going on. So if you ever see that in a portal and you see the stopwatch going around a circle, kind of grayed out, yep. Okay, Alpha Lima is changing spin. So if this is a second question, I'm going to go for this. Alpha Lima says, I accidentally made a second anchor buoy configuration for some additional features. Other than being a pain, does it create any extra problems to integrate a second SUI's backend? Well, okay, so here's the deal. Is he's asking, like, is there a penalty? Okay, here's how this works. I'm just gonna. It doesn't matter what these say. Just look at it. Your layouts are always attached to anchor. Whoops, sorry. So you have a layout attached to that. You have a layout attached to that. Everything that you need to drive this layout is in these. So when you bring this layout up, FileMaker has to evaluate these relationships. So if you have one relationship or no relationships, it's instantaneous. If you have 8 relationships, it might be another half a second or a millisecond or whatever it is. If you put another 20 on here, it will continue to slow down. If you going really like this, where you do like parent to child, is less of a pain. When you start doing parent to child to grandchild to great-grandchild to tertiary, very distant grandchild on the Mars or something over here, when you're trying to look at this data through this stuff, it really can strain the product. 4 or 5 jumps down can be painful. But at least in this case, it would be a pretty limited group. But the problem is over here on the spider, you could actually be over here and jump to here, then jump to here, then jump to here, and then it cross-connected to this, and then it goes to that, and then it goes to that. And then you're like, that's like 8 or 12 hops. And it has to think about that. And that's why it loses its mind. So will it be slower? Yeah. Will it be slow enough to cause a problem? I don't know. You have to take a look at it and plug it in and see what happens. Okay. So the Alpha Lima question, that one, listen, if you had a choice between a layout that, like say this is contacts right here, and it does something, and then you have a different, it's the same kind of contacts, same base table here, right? So this is a contacts table. Say these are both, say this is contacts for my engineering team. This is contacts for Ryan, my licensed sales guy. They need to see different stuff. If this stuff over here is really different, I would probably do a layout for the engineers, which showed them one set, and an engineer for Ryan, the different set, even though the base table is still, the base table is the same. When you're evaluating it for this layout, it only has to worry about this stuff. That's the trick with Anchor Buoy. It only has to worry about just that little group. And so if you add to that group, it's going to go slower. If you make the group smaller, it goes faster. And it gets worse when you're dealing with wide area connections across the planet or from Australia to the United States. If you're running this locally on your computer locally and you don't run server at all, you're not getting any backups, which is bad, but that's the fastest it could possibly be, is running locally on the computer. Okay. Sometimes in list views, it is sorting automatically. How to avoid... okay. Candido's got a really great question. Candido, hopefully you're still here. I'm going to give this to you. So I haven't really talked about this too much. It's a good one to... I want to answer Candido's question right here. I can't. Let me make it go away. When you're doing with FileMaker and you have a problem with a sort, let's just cover this real quick. I'm going to go to... I'll go to the big database here. I'll open it up. So the internet's still working here. It's just Discord... literally we lost. Discord went down. And so what's important to understand with this is that Candido is pointing out that sometimes I'm in a list view, right, is what he says, and it goes sorting automatically. How to avoid the event that delays showing the list. Okay, so what happens is, this is a very important thing. When you do a sort, and what you're doing is you're running into someone else who's laid a trap for you. They've laid a trap for you, and that is that fact that they've said, let's sort records. So I can say sort right here, or you can go up under records down to sort, wherever that's at right here, Command S. And you can say you're going to sort by account name or something, right? There's this checkbox right here. Let me zoom in on this. There is this checkbox right here. And what this does is it keeps the records sorted. So as you add new records or delete new records, or someone imports new records, it will go, oh, it needs to resort. And so it might cause a little stutter action, a little bit of a stutter, because someone's adding a bunch of records. But we had deals where someone's sitting here, someone's importing records from another system somewhere, and your system starts getting the new records in, but your layout is set to sort automatically. Those records come in, your local client's going, oh, sort, oh, sort, oh, sort. And so you get this kind of a chug where it kind of hangs and then it goes and it hangs and then the screen updates and then it chugs and the screen updates. That's because someone left the auto sort enabled. And this is normally on by default. I would, depending upon the situation, think about turning it off. So that's the answer to Candido's question. So, all right, everyone, I appreciate it. We'll catch you Monday if we don't have a random broadcast this weekend. I wouldn't worry about it. It'll all be recorded. All right? Appreciate it. And then next week, Jesse Barnum. It's going to be very exciting. Very, very cool.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.